Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to an amazing morning. I say again because hopefully you guys have been joining me the last couple of days because it's been so good. If you missed the last two, you got to go back and watch them. It helps you put this whole thing in perspective, especially with what we're talking about today. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Pastor Josh Richter. Thank you for joining me here today as we dive into another truth that God has clearly made evident in His Word so that you can have an amazing morning and be propelled to accomplish God's best will for your life. His best plans are available and possible for you. So that's what we're going to be talking about here in just a second. But before I go any farther, though, I've had some people asking me, hey, what's up with your podcast? Like, it's there, you're every Monday through Friday, and then you just disappeared for a week and a half. What in the world? It was really two things. One, it was poor planning because of two, we went on a dynamic trip to do a revival, an identity revival in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It was so powerful. God moved. Lives were changed. There were so many testimonies. The pastor even messaged me last night saying that their Sunday service was filled with testimonies of how people were changed, have grown, and things have already begun to manifest. The truths beginning to make real substance, real manifested change in their lives and in the situations around them. That is awesome. I love doing these identity revival conference weekends. If you want to learn more, go to rootofrevival.com. You can have Pastor Kate and I come in and it will be amazing. I can guarantee you that, not because Pastor Kate and I are that amazing, but because we know His voice. That's really what it is. And when we come and we share what He has to say to the body, it's different every time. And yet God always has signs and wonders following the word being preached. And it is so fun. So that's not what we're talking about today. We're going to continue on with God's given us the responsibility to create character. He has rebuilt our spirit the moment we got saved so that on the inside, the real us is 100% equipped with everything we need in a superabundance, so that much that we can always be generous on every occasion, in every single way, in every arena, in every sphere of influence. That's who we are in the Spirit. Now it's up to us to develop our soul, develop our mind, to get out of the way and let God's will be done and stay consistent with it. Not to be going with the ups and downs where we're feeling up, we're feeling down. Our emotions are on a high, our emotions are on a low. Things are really good, things are really bad. That's not who God's created us to be or how He's created us to live. No, character necessitates consistency. Who you are always is your character. Not who you wish you were, not who you intended to be, but because of XYZ you had to do ABC. That's not what it is. No, character is who you think that you are and the perspective you live out of this is my identity. This is who I am. And there's some people that in the Word that really, really stepped into the fullness of who God had made them to be. And we can learn from that. We did it yesterday. We looked at Joseph. This morning, I want to look at someone who missed it, and yet God still used him mightily, even though God's plans were better. It's true. And it's this guy named Moses. Now, some of you are like, wait a sec. Moses wasn't a failure. He led the Israelites out of Egypt, into the promised land. How could you call that a failure? Let's look at some things about his character that we can see in the Word. We're going to start even hundreds of years before Moses was born. I want to show you this. And why are we doing all this? Hang on, let me show you. We're doing all of this so that we can be diligent to present ourselves approved to God, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That's who God wants us to be, to present ourselves approved, consistent, a person of character. All right, so here we go. This is God talking to Abraham. Then he said to Abraham, "Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years." That's a long time to be afflicted. That's what God said to Abraham. And then you know it as well as I do. What happened? Joseph goes to Egypt. He brings his family down there. He gives them the best farmland, or the best land to raise their cattle and their sheep in. But then other kings of Egypt, Potiphar's? No, kings of Egypt. Pharaohs, that's the word I'm looking for. Other pharaohs of Egypt came that did not remember or did not allow their knowledge of Joseph to influence their decisions, and they began to oppress the Israelites. But look at this. This is what I want to get to. This is Exodus chapter 12, verse 40. Exodus 12:40 says, "Now the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years. So here's my question. Why the extra 30 years? Did God lie to them? Was God's plan not to bring them out in 400 years and then he told them a not truth? Maybe God's not as powerful as he said. No, I would propose that it was because of lack of character in Moses. Moses knew God's plan was to use him to deliver the Israelites. You can see that we can read about that in Acts chapter 7. Let me put that up. Acts 7, "And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended and avenged him who was oppressed, and struck down the Egyptian. For he supposed that his brethren would have understood that God would deliver them by his hand, but they did not understand." He knew that God had created him to deliver the Israelites. But what did he do? He took it into his own hand. There's record of God speaking to Moses about parting the Red Sea. There's a record of God speaking to Moses about the plagues. There's records of God speaking about how to deliver Israel. There's records of God speaking to Moses about how to provide water in the desert, of what to do, what to say all along the way. You know what there's no record of? There's no record of God telling Moses to go kill that Egyptian. And then Moses' decision to kill the Egyptian was followed by a decision to fear, and then he fled, where he spent 40 years as a shepherd in a foreign land before God sent him back to Egypt. So from these time frames, we can see that God's original plan was about 10 years from that point, that God said his people would come out of Egypt with great wealth. You're like, wait a sec, prove it to me. God doesn't put wealth on his people. No, that's not his plan. He just wants them to be free from their sins, and we should be satisfied with that. Hang on, nope, let's go back. Genesis 15:13. "Certainly your descendants will be strangers in the land and will serve them, and they will afflict them for 400 years. Verse 14, "And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions." God's will is always abundance for his people. So, God's plan was delayed. That's really what it is. God's best plan was not foiled. God got them back to that place, but it was delayed. You can see, because it was about 10 years from when Moses killed the Egyptian, that God's plan was for the Israelites to be set free. But because Moses took God's will into his own plans, being led by his emotions, being led by whatever it was, his own ideas, his own natural human limited insight that said, you know what, I'm created to be the deliverer, so I'm going to step into that role and deliver this one Israelite. And because he took it into his own hands, they endured slavery for another 30 years longer. Here's the truth. How many of us can say the same thing has happened in our lives? That we have taken things into our own hands by doing what made sense, and then we feel like it fails, and we go through a time of waiting, and then we're brought right back to that same place again, where we have the decision to step into it, to make that choice, and we have another option. Are we going to step in to follow God's plan, even though it's tough, even though it doesn't make sense, even though it's difficult? Or will we lean on our own understanding and not his, and do what seems right in our own eyes that leads to death, and we end up going around that mountain again? God's plan is not for you to continue to delay his best will. We see that Moses did that over and over again, even to the point where when he was led by his anger, he hit the rock instead of speaking to it. Water was provided so that all of the Israelites could drink, but Moses was not able to go into the promised land because of his disobedience to God's word. He missed out on the fullness of what God had for him to experience because he would not let go of his emotions, being led by his emotions. He would not let go of doing what seemed right in the moment to him, to say what seemed right in the moment to those around him. And it delayed or thwarted God's best plans from being done in his life. So what can we do? We got to stop going by what makes sense in our own eyes. To let God lead us in every conversation, in every situation, instead of seeming so that, how do I say this? When we do this, we will no longer see or experience delays in God's will coming to pass. Instead, we're going to trade that, and we're going to start to see acceleration into God's plan. When you get on track, when you say yes to God and abandon yourself to him, to choose to let him be the leader in your life, I'm telling you, there's a real supernatural acceleration that gets you into God's best plans faster than you could guess, because it's supernatural. It will go beyond what your natural mind can conceive. Because that's how God works. Always. Pray. Seriously. Pray. God, make me who I need to be to thrive in this season and in the next. And then get ready. You know what's going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Pressure, you'll have an opportunity to step into God's best plan, and that same pressure is going to come back. And it may even come back in an increased level to get you to waver, to get you to relent, to do God's will with partiality, but that not in the fullness because of a million different excuses. Don't waver this time. Don't relent. Hold fast to your faith. And God, who is with you, will deliver you from every trial, just like he did with Joseph, just like he did with so many in the word. God will deliver you when you hold fast to his word. When you do not, what does it say? Stand. When you've done all to stand, stand firm then. That is God's plan. And delight yourself in the word. Don't get your focus off on the problems, on the issues, on the pressures. No, instead, focus on what the word says, because that will bring you life. Psalms 1:2. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither, and whatever he does, he prospers. You were meant to be like a tree planted by streams of water, that no matter what storms come your way, it may wave back and forth, but it is not moved. It is not uprooted. It holds fast to the truth of where it is rooted, fully in God and his word and his will. That's God's plan for you. It is time for you to do it. Do not waver, and you will experience the best of God's plan. All right, I gotta let you go. Have an amazing morning. I'll see you all tomorrow.